Today, we're diving into one of biology's most amazing superpowers, the power of regeneration. We're going to try and crack the code. I want you to think about something for a second. What if our bodies could heal without scars? I mean, really heal. You get a deep cut, maybe even lose a finger, and it just grows back perfectly. No trace it was ever gone. It sounds like something straight out of a comic book, right? Well, what if I told you it's not science fiction at all? At least, not for one remarkable creature out there. There is an animal that already holds the secret. Okay, let's talk about nature's regeneration superpower. And for that, you have to meet the master of regrowth, the one, the only, axolotl. Yeah, this little salamander is way more than just a cute face. It's a straight-up biological marvel. I mean, this quote from a PNAS study says it all. The axolotl doesn't just heal, it regenerates. We're talking entire limbs, parts of its brain, even its spinal cord. You can see why it's become this incredibly important model for scientists trying to understand regeneration. So, what's the difference between how we heal and what this little guy can do? Well, when we get hurt, our body's response is basically damage control. It slaps on a patch of scar tissue. It's functional, but it's not the original. The axolotl, it doesn't patch. It rebuilds. It literally goes back to its original genetic blueprints and creates a perfect, brand new replacement. Think of it this way. We use duct tape. The axolotl rebuilds the wall from scratch. This leads to the obvious question, right? If the axolotl has this incredible blueprint, why haven't we just copied it? Well, for a very long time, that blueprint was locked away inside what you could only call a giant genetic puzzle. And when I say giant, I mean giant. Let's put this into perspective. Our human genome? It's about 3.2 billion base pairs long. Pretty big, right? The axolotl's genome is 32 billion base pairs. Yeah, you heard that right. It's 10 times larger than the human genome. 10 times. Imagine trying to assemble an instruction manual that's 10 times longer than our own. That was the unbelievable challenge facing scientists. Okay. Quick refresher. What exactly is a genome? The simplest way to think about it is as the complete biological instruction book for any living thing. It's got all the code needed for it to grow, live, and do its thing. So what makes the axolotl's instruction book so ridiculously long? Well, it's one main thing. Tons and tons of repetitive DNA sequences. Its genome is just stuffed with these identical repeating bits of code. The analogy of the instruction manual is perfect here. It's like trying to read a book where the same paragraph has been copied and pasted millions of times. How could you ever figure out the real order of the story? And for years, because of this, the axolotl's code was essentially uncrackable. It was just too big, too repetitive. But then, a breakthrough, a brand new technique came along that finally gave scientists the key. So, the first step is the challenge itself. Sequencing a genome means you have to break it up into billions of tiny fragments, like putting a book through a shredder. The hard part is taping all those tiny sentences back together in the right order. The tool that changed everything is called Hi-C. Now, what's so clever about it is that instead of just reading the fragments, Hi-C maps out how the DNA is folded up in 3D space inside the cell. It figures out which bits of shredded paper were next to each other before the shredding happened. And with that 3D map, they could finally piece the whole puzzle together. All right, so they finally assembled this massive blueprint. And what they discovered inside, well, nobody saw it coming. I mean, think about it, 10 times the size, filled with all that repetitive junk DNA. Everyone expected the inside of the axolotl genome to be a total chaotic mess, just a jumble of code. But that's not what they found. Not even close. This right here, this is the moment. On the left, you see a Hi-C map of a region in the human genome. On the right, the exact same region from the axolotl. Just look at them. That strong diagonal line, those boxy squares. The pattern is almost identical. It's the same fundamental structure, even though they've been evolving separately for over 400 million years. It's the same pattern, just on a massively different scale. So what are those squares? They have a technical name, topologically associating domains, or TADs for short. But I love the analogy of neighborhoods. Think of them as neighborhoods in the city of the genome. They keep genes and their control switches bundled together. This organization is absolutely critical for making sure the right genes get switched on or off when they're supposed to. And here's the mind-blowing part. The axolotl has these same neighborhoods as we do. The genes, which are like the houses on the block, are in the exact same order. The only difference is that the streets between the houses are way, way longer, like 20 to 50 times longer, just filled with that repetitive DNA. So it's not a mess. It's a perfectly scaled-up blueprint. But that leads to a really big question, right? Functionally, how does this work? If a genetic switch that's supposed to turn on a gene is suddenly millions of letters away instead of just a few thousand, can it still work? Can that on signal really travel across such a ridiculously long distance? So, to test this, the scientists did something absolutely brilliant. They took one of those long-distance genetic switches from the axolotl and hooked it up to a gene that makes things glow green. And what happened? Check this out. The limb bud glows a vibrant green exactly where it's supposed to. The switch worked. The signal jumped that massive distance without a problem. It was definitive proof that the axolotl's entire system is built to work perfectly across these huge genetic landscapes. Okay, so what does this all mean? Cracking this code, seeing this perfectly scaled-up blueprint, it's so much more than just a cool piece of biology trivia. This really opens up a whole new way of thinking about the future of healing. So let's just recap what we've learned, right? The axolotl is this master of regeneration. Its genome is enormous, 10 times bigger than ours, because of all this repetitive DNA. But thanks to Hi-C, we now know it's not a random mess. It's a perfectly scaled-up version of a standard vertebrate blueprint. And its genetic switches work flawlessly across these crazy distances. The bottom line? We now have the complete, high-quality genetic map we've always needed to really dig into how regeneration works. So the next huge question, the big one for regeneration biology, is finding the master switch. What is the trigger? After an injury, how does the axolotl tell its cells to basically turn back the clock and fire up the genes they used when they were just an embryo to build a whole new limb from scratch? And that brings us to the final, really exciting question. We have the instruction manual now. We can read the axolotl's code. So does that mean that perfect healing is some alien superpower we need to somehow borrow? Or, and this is the really big thought, is it a lost art? Is that ability already hidden somewhere deep inside our own DNA, just waiting for us to find the key to unlock it?